Let's take a quick technical break.
Okay, I can hear you now.
You can hear me, or I'm gonna just do a little bit more talking and see if she can hear me.
All right.
Chelsea, if you can hear me, put it in the chat.
I think we can carry it.
Okay. Let's see. If not, I can switch to the other mic because I think that one worked all last time. So.
That is true.
Let's see. Okay, so first announcement. Thanks to REI Nexus for sponsoring our use of the space. So thank you for that. We're going to have another meeting next week, 5:30, and I have some interesting thoughts. Some fun. I think I have a fun book. I'm excited to bring next week. If you want a text notification about the future events, here's a QR code. Is that on the screen there?
It is.
Okay, so if you want text notifications about future events, scan this QR code, or the link is in the description so that you can get text a few hours before we go live with this. So, and then last piece is this is a discussion. If you don't agree with something or if you really love something, then raise your hand. I want to hear about it, right? Okay, let's see, did I get there we go. Okay, so is my book, I brought the book. Did I leave it over here? Maybe I left it in the car. Yeah, if you want to go grab that real quick. Okay, so make a people an offer so good they would feel stupid saying no. That's a very interesting concept, and it's a little bit jarring, anyway. Yeah. The only way to conduct business is through a value exchange, a trade of dollars for value. The offer is what initiates this trade. In a nutshell, the offer is the goods and services you agree to give or provide, and how you accept payment and what are the terms of the agreement. And it is what begins the process of getting customers and making money. It's the first thing any new customer will interact with in your business. Since the offer is what attracts new customers, it's the lifeblood of your business. All right, so I want to take a minute and I want to talk about, I want to get some questions out here. What are some offers that you guys have seen that have worked really well? Or what are some offers that you guys are working on? So let's throw this out here. Either of you guys, I know you guys are both working on offers, so.
Well, I was going to say one of the offers that worked really well was when I bought my Renatus education.
Okay.
It's probably the most surprising purchase I've ever made for me because of just kind of how it happened and how it felt to me. So that's probably one of the ones where it's like it was a really, really, really good system up until the point of the sale. So that's a good
right.
one, I guess.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that because, I think I also do that. So what would you say worked really well for that offer up to the point of the sale?
Well, I would say, I don't know. It's something that I'm still trying to dissect. Right?
Okay, cool.
Years later, but I can tell you one thing. That was probably the first offer that I very much felt this way, where it's like, I'm almost dumb if I say no to this, right? Like, I can figure it out, I can see it, and so I think that's one of the things that makes it so powerful. But I'm excited to see if I see like a similarity to what Alex is saying and how that was structured.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. While you were saying that, one of the other things, way back when, I had the opportunity, this was probably a decade ago, I got on a webinar with Russell Brunson, right? And in that webinar, he sold a $1,000 package for ClickFunnels and for a whole bunch of education and things like that. And so that's one of those offers that I was like, wow, man, he's just stacking it on there, right? Like, holy cow, how all of these things you're going to get. And so then I was sold. I bought it. I used the ClickFunnels for a long time. And so, I mean, now I use other software, but, I still kind of remember the feeling of going through and being sold, right? And so I do recommend feeling that feeling frequently, and not necessarily like buying everything, but if you can feel that feeling, then you can help your clients or prospective clients to also feel that feeling of being sold, and then you can make those sales as well, right? So anyway, are we over here? Do you have anything you want to add? If you don't, that's fine.
I was just thinking about dealing with vendors and purchasing equipment for manufacturing plants. There definitely is an awareness of value. It's like not just the value of the equipment itself, but like how does the vendor interact with you? Does he show interest in your project? Do they follow up? So like the whole package is more than just the price, is what I'm trying to say. What is the overall value? And when you find somebody that is great to work with and you feel like you're getting a fair price and you know that they're going to come through, then yeah, it just makes sense. It's like, yeah, we're going to use them next time.
Right. Yeah, that's great. Anybody else have anything I want to say about, times that they had an offer that sold them or that they sold someone else on? Anybody? You.
Kirk Duncan has a coaching offer, and he's
Okay.
offering coaching.
Yeah.
And so I already know that his stuff is totally high value, and so whenever he says, okay, and I'm going to give you this and that, like tons of stuff, like you said, because of the past experience I've had, I just know that it is a very good offer.
Right. So it's fun because you get to see where there's times that, like, holy cow, like that's so much value. And I think we were talking a little bit ago, and he doesn't do a lot of his other things before. After COVID, he kind of like really pared down all the things he's doing, right? Yeah. And so as a coach, one of the things I was like, wow, that's a ton of value, is all of his like lessons that he did previously, he's now licensing to the people who are coaches, right? And so I was like, that is a ton of value, right? Yeah.
You know that he put in years of effort into that much stuff.
Right.
And it's all for you.
Right. Yeah. So, okay, cool. Let's move to the next one. Okay, so in his book, he talks about these 5 pieces. No offer, you don't have a business. There is no business if you don't have an offer at all. Bad offer, so if you have a bad offer, you have negative profit, no business, and a miserable life, right? So this is one of the things we want to work on figuring out, right? We want to figure out, how do we get good offers? A decent offer, you're going to have no profit, stagnated business, and stagnating life. A good offer, you're going to have some profit, okay business, and okay life. And what this book is about, creating grand slam offers, fantastic profit, and insane business freedom. Okay, so maybe we did this a little bit. I think Gavin did. Does anybody else here have an offer they want to share? Like something that they're just thinking about, and this could be just like, hey, I could sell this, right? Or I could do that. I think you might have.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So and this isn't like, this is a work, we're going to work through some of these things during this event. So whatever you have right now is great, perfect for where you're at, right? All right, you want to talk into the mic a little bit?
So the offer that I have is a 4-week coaching for parents. And so what that includes is it's every day. So it's a 20-minute online course every day for 5 days. Basically, it's like 20 tools for teaching teens resilience. And so that's my offer.
Cool.
So, I mean, that's my product. That's not my offer, right?
Okay,
So
yeah.
that's my product.
Cool. Yeah, all right, sounds awesome.
I can go on, but
Yeah,
you'll
no
tell
worries.
me more as we go.
All right. So as we were coming here, I was also thinking about, what are some of my offers? What are some of the things that I'm offering? And so then me and Talmadge, as we're coming here, we started working on, I think we came up with about 5 or 6 different products that I'm working on. And so some of them include, video editing, things like that. Also creating automations for people. I do this stream for myself, but I also have 2 other clients that I'm using that use me to do this. So that's one of my products, and I'm excited to actually run through this offer process with each of those. We won't do that on stream or anything, but yeah. Does anybody else have any offers they want to share?
Sure, mine really quick. What specifically are you looking for? Just like a broad overview, or?
Yeah, well, so really kind of my thought in this is, in the next slide or in the next couple of slides, we talk about the 4 different levers that make a great offer, right?
Cool.
And so if, I just kind of want to showcase what do we have right now, and how can we apply those 4 levers in the next couple of slides to make our offers better, right?
Uh-huh.
So anyway, yeah. Whatever you want to share about your offer would be great.
Well, I guess with my student partner, my student partnerships, what I offer is we do all of the construction, all of the funding, and all of the negotiating on all of the deals that we do together for wholesales, fix and flips, rentals, and listings. And so really what's included in that is when a student gets started with us, we'll give them an onboarding process. We also have what we call an owner's call, which is where one of the owners from our company is going to get involved and do some goal setting with them so that we can kind of keep their goals in mind as we coach them. And then we take them through what we call our Launch Academy, which is 10 structured calls that they'll go through to kind of get up to speed and kind of ready to the point where they're ready to go do the lead gen. And then we'll do a little bit of that with them inside of Launch Academy, and then we're just going to set them free. And I guess I don't know what else to say that would be important for the next slide. So I guess we'll just
great.
Look at it and see.
That's great. That's awesome.
I'm excited to see the levers, though.
Okay. All right. So before we get into that, though, we're going to talk about the commodity problem. So if we have an apple on, in our shop, right? If we have an apple, and the person down the street or down the street just a little bit also has an apple, when people come up, then they get to ask the question, how is your apple different than his apple, right? Because they're trying to figure out how to compare those things, right? They're trying to, in their brain, figure out which one is more valuable so that they can stack that up against what is the price, so then they can figure out which one do I buy, right? Because a lot of times they'll be like, all right, I'm hungry, right? How do I compare what's out there in the market? And so for us, as we are going through and we're looking at growing our companies, there's really 3 different ways, and really there's only 2, right? We can get more customers, we can increase the average purchase value, and we can get them to buy more times, right? So those are the 3 different ways that it takes to grow. And if we are comparing ourselves to other people, or if other people can compare themselves to us, then this is a race to the bottom. Because if your product is exactly the same as their product, the only way to get better is to be cheaper, right? So the difference here is if we go to value-driven stuff, then we are selling in a category of one with no comparison. So does that make sense? Right? If I am over here and I'm like, hey, this is an amazing thing, widget, nobody else sells this thing, I get to say what the price is, I get to say what the value is, I get to say all sorts of things about this, and it's like comparing to a vacuum, right? And so you get to do that. So does anybody have any comments about this before I jump to the next slide? Talked about some people who do this really, really well.
Oh,
He says Apple, right? So who here has heard of the Apple Vision Pro? You've heard of the Apple Vision Pro?
the Apple Vision Pro.
Okay. So I've been watching this because I'm very interested in VR and AR and all of these things. But one of the really weird things, and it's not weird, they're doing it very much on purpose, is this is not a virtual reality headset. It's not an augmented reality headset. In their presentation, they said virtual reality or augmented reality 0 times, right? And I watched a whole video. MKBHD did an awesome video on this where he went through and he's like, they worked really hard to put this in its own category, right? So yes, this does some of the AR things. It does some of the VR things, but they were driving to something higher, which in my opinion was just, and they call it spatial computing, right? So the point that they were trying to go for is we don't do AR, we don't do VR, we do spatial computing. And with spatial computing, all of your screens, you can have a huge screen in your field of view that stays in your field of view that you can then go do work on or whatever, right? Or you can watch TV on or whatever it is. And they've done a lot of work to get to that space. Now, in their iPhones and in their MacBooks, yes, those are all computers, but it's really, really hard to differentiate a MacBook between an Intel computer now because they run on separate chips, right? The chips are so different and they just do different things. So you can benchmark them against each other, but it's really most of the time apples and oranges. And so they've done a really good job of doing this.
Apples and oranges.
Right? Didn't. All right, so another question for you. If you were going to open a hot dog stand and you could only have one advantage over your competition, what would it be? All right, so let's throw this out here. Hot dog stand people, what is your competitive advantage?
Let's say I'm the only one who does relish.
You only have, okay, so you're the only one who does relish. Well, that doesn't appeal to me, so I'm out. But, great. No worries.
So in my hot dog stand, I would have all the fixings, all kinds of stuff, like the chili or your chili cheese dog, or you could have just a cheese dog, or I would have what are those?
Onions?
Cabbage, the cabbage, fermented cabbage. I would do it all.
Sauerkraut?
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Awesome. Yeah.
Me? I'll say I'll set up a cotton candy stand.
Okay.
Attract more kids to,
Cool.
eat cotton candy and hot dogs.
Yeah. All right. You have like additional things to the side of your.
Add more value to it.
Okay. Cool. That's awesome. All right. Let's. And for those of you in the comments, put your stuff in the comments on
If
how.
I were opening a hot dog stand and I could only have one advantage over the competition, I would sell Polish sausage.
That's absolutely what that would be. Maybe what about I've been liking those food trucks, so maybe I'd just go hot dog truck. Then call it different. I don't know.
Okay. Sounds great.
I would have French bread and make it very fancy, like the fanciest hot dog place you've ever been to.
Cool. That's awesome. All right. I'm going to cheat off the book here. Starving crowd. Because does it matter if you have a starving crowd?
Well, that's cool because
Yeah.
I was going to say at the beginning too, you put up that slide where it was like, if you have a bad offer, then it's no business. If you have a poor offer, then it's negative cash flowing, and then it went on. And I was also thinking, I've seen times where I've seen people with incredible offers, and their only problem is it's like they're not making enough offers, right? They're maybe making 3 and they're killing it getting 2 of them every week or month, but they're just not in front of the starving crowd. But
Right.
they have the most amazing hot dog stand.
Right.
So I like that.
So anyway, as we're going through and designing what our offer is, this is a really important piece, right? And so he has a whole chapter on this. So and again, going back to, I usually say this at the beginning, I don't do these books justice in any way. Like, this is just the taste of what the book has to offer, and I highly recommend going and getting the book and reading it and listening to it, and you get more out of it, right? But what I love about this is that we get to talk about it, right? So what are we looking for? Continuing in on that, right? When we are looking for people who are that starving crowd for our businesses, these are some of those pieces that we want to look for. And whenever I did a course with You Gurus, Brent Weaver, and he taught this concept here of having a bullseye, and then you have multiple rings on your bullseye to allow you to figure out if this is the right customer for you. And if they have the pain, but none of these other pieces, maybe they're off over here, right? And it's not a bullseye for you. If they have the purchasing power, but they don't have the pain, maybe it's the same problem, right? So as we are looking for all of these different pieces, the more of these pieces that we can get into the center of that bullseye, the more that is the perfect customer for us as we're going through, right? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, can I get the box? So what do you mean by pain in this case? Is it just like their need for your good or service?
Yeah.
I have a suggestion.
Yeah, go for it.
I mean, obviously, if you've got a parent who's having a struggling teen, they're having some pain. So that's the target that I'm going for.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Does anybody else have any other pains that their customers are experiencing that they are helping solve?
Yeah, sure. Tightening environmental regulations, decrease in profitability, lost potential profits because of older technologies, higher competition from people that are using better strategies. Those are all pains that they have to solve, or their business gets more and more uncomfortable.
Right, absolutely. Cool.
I think a lot of the pain that I solve for my students is the risk on the real estate investments.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so in the next section, he talks about how do we go through the process of we have somebody who has the pain, we have things like that. They have all of those different things. So right here it says, there's no strategic benefit to being the second lowest price player in your marketplace, but there's absolutely a strategic benefit to being the most expensive.
Heard Russell say that too.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. So let's go through some of these and let's just talk about these. If you pay a lot for something, if you pay a lot for a product, are you emotionally invested in that thing?
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. And why do you feel like that is? Like, yeah.
Well, I mean, like, for example, if you spent a long time gathering that much money together and you give it to someone, that amount of time is your expectation or your investment in that, and you want to get it back, obviously, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for emotional investment, that's part
Right.
of it.
And I think same with perceived value, right? You expect that I paid a lot of money and I'm a decently smart person, so obviously that had to have been worth more money because I spent more money on it, right? Okay, so if we decrease our price, the perceived value is going to go down. If we increase our price, the perceived value goes up. If we decrease our price, the results are going to go down. Hey, how are you? Welcome.
Does the results go down because of why?
I would say a lot. So statistically, if you are a person who is, let's just say you're building courses, because that's what you do, right? If somebody pays a lot of money for something, then they commit to themselves they're going to make it work, right?
Right. I got it.
And so it's not necessarily that your course is any less valuable. It's just that they commit to themselves that, hey, this was a sacrifice for me. I'm going to make it. Yeah, okay, there's your right there.
I don't want to cut you off, so.
Oh, no worries. That's great.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. So it's like, if you spend a lot of money on the course, you're gonna actually go through and watch every video, right? And you're gonna go through and, yeah.
I got it.
I love it.
Okay.
So this works like a scale?
Mm-hmm.
If you increase the perceived value, or if you increase the price, the perceived value decreases, right? Or vice versa, if you decrease the perceived value. If you decrease your price, the perceived value increases, kind of a thing?
Yeah. Yep. So basically, if we look at this over here, as your price drops, you're going to decrease emotional investment, decrease perceived value, decrease results. All of these things get worse. But if we increase our price, then all of these things get better in the mind of your client or your customer. And so then on top of that, in your business, that was for your clients, right? For your business, if you have increased your price, but it still costs you the same amount to fulfill the thing, your profit's going to go up. And one of the things that I was talking to somebody the other day who cleans, they clean carpets, upholstery, cleaning, things like that. They have their own business. And so we got into a little bit talking about their business, and they said that right now they feel like they're struggling a little bit. And so I asked them, have you considered raising your rates, right? Have you considered, you seem to have plenty of people to work with, raise your rates. And he's like, I can't do it. Like, people will stop coming if I do it. So we got out some math, and I said, look, if you increase your rates by half what you're doing right now, or double your rates, as long as you don't alienate most of your clients by doing that, then you have more profit and you have less work, right? Because a lot of, and he even told me, he's like, man, a lot of times they just give me a tip that's basically the same price as what, or like half of the cost of what I just did. And I'm like, that is a great indicator that you are undercharging. Like, because everybody feels like right? And so I was like, I really think that you need to raise your rates by a lot. And he had a ton of things he was doing for those clients. He would go to them and do all of this stuff. And so anyway, just in doing that, all of these good things happen as you continue working on raising your rates, right? So let's do a little bit of discussion on this. Anyone any questions, any comments about this?
Yeah. So I remember we used to do a lot of proposals, and somebody was talking about this. This was 20 years ago now, but they were saying in manufacturing, they were saying, if you win every bid, and you lose money on every bid, you are out of business. But if you lose a third or a half of the bids, but you're making money on the ones that you're winning, you're making money, you're making profits. So it's kind of like, you don't want to win every bid if it's costing you. So this is kind of a different way of looking at that. But this sort of makes sense to me. It's like, yeah, we want to charge enough that we're not winning everything, but we're winning good ones.
Right. And so a major part of this book, and I don't cover it this is about the extent that I cover it. He talks about that exact thing. He's like, we want to make sure that that there is demand for our stuff, and that there is a set of our customer base that is unsatisfied because they didn't get in, right? And so one of the major things that does is that super creates this sense of the fear of missing out, FOMO, right? For the people who didn't do it, which increases the perceived value of your product further, right? Does that make sense? So we don't actually want to make sure that everybody can get in at the same time, because that decreases the perceived value, right? So anyway, yeah, that's great.
So I have a question. Or
Yeah.
maybe a comment. So,
Let's put it in here real quick.
but I mean, that, so like, for example, I had, I was doing some crafts and I sold them at a craft fair. And I sold them at a pretty high price because I spent a lot of time on them. And I didn't sell hardly any of them, right? But I'm thinking that maybe the difference between that and what we're doing here is nobody really felt the impetus like they had the pain or the need. And so, of course, they didn't really buy it because they didn't need it.
Right.
And so I think that basically in the beginning, you've got to set up the need. Like, there's some pain. I'm giving you something you really need, right? Is that... Yeah, and then you can charge the higher prices.
Right.
Okay.
So here's another story that goes along with this. So a man went to his daughter and said, "Hey, I'm so proud of you. You've graduated high school. I want you to take the car that's in the garage. I want you to take that down to the dealership. And I want you to don't sell it, but tell me what they would give you for this car." Right? And so it's kind of an older car. So she drove it down to the dealership, and they're like, it's pretty old. I'd give you, $2,000 for it, right? And so then he was like, all right, now take it to this other place and see what they'll give it, it's for sale by owner, right? And somebody is like, yeah, $3,000 or $4,000, right? So then he's like, okay, now take this over to this specific car enthusiast, right? And so she took it over to that car enthusiast, and he's like, do you know how rare this is? This is a pristine, thing, a pristine car. And Gavin's much more of a motorhead than I am, but this is worth $100,000 to $200,000. Like, where'd you even? And so in that same vein, making sure you know where to find somebody is really important, right? And if you are not being valued where you're at the flea market or whatever, it may just mean that you need to move locations because your value is worth a lot to someone else. Does that make sense? So, all right, cool. Real quick, were you unable to hear me even after I do this?
No, I can.
Okay, so if I'm doing this, you can hear me? Okay. All right, so this is a great part of the book, right? Who here has seen this before?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Okay. This right here is an amazing part of this book, and basically he built the book on this equation. So we have the dream outcome times the perceived likelihood of achievement divided by the time delay and the effort and sacrifice. So does anybody want to talk about this for a second? Anybody that's seen this before, or should I keep going?
Explain it to me, Lucy. Explain it.
Okay. So the dream outcome is, what will I make? If you're talking to a client, so there's two ways you can think about this, right? There's one, you can teach this to your clients, and you'd be like, and it depends on what industry you're in, right? Some lend themselves better than others. And coaching, right? If you're doing a lot of coaching, then you can explain this to your clients. If you're in real estate, maybe not quite so much, but you use this in your real estate to do what you're doing, right? So you can go through the process of explaining what is the dream outcome. What are the things that are going to be solved by purchasing your product? What will I make? Perceived likelihood of achievement is, how will I know this is going to happen, right? So this is, your guarantees, or this is, all of the other experiences that you can show off, you can showcase. One of the things that Alex talks a lot about in his presentations is having a stack of proof that you are who you say you are, right? And so you don't have to worry about, having confidence, because, the path behind you has all of the experiences to prove that you are who you say you are, right? So how will I know this is going to happen? Then in speaking to your clients about your product and your offer, how long is it going to take for me to get this thing, right? How long is it going to take? And what is expected of me to go through and do that? So these are all the questions. Yeah, right here.
Yeah, so you and I talked about this already, so I have it all like down pat now. So I want to give you my
Okay, yeah, go for it.
Right? It's going to be a great. Okay, so the parent's dream outcome is a resilient child.
Okay.
So the perceived likelihood of achievement, if they don't use my course, like maybe or maybe not, and it might take them 20 years to figure it out, right?
Then their kid's grown.
Right? The kids are already grown up. And there's a time delay right there. And it's going to take a lot of effort and sacrifice for them to figure that out.
Right.
So basically, I have taken 15 to 20 years already to try to figure out these tools.
Right.
And so, and I actually have gone through a lot of effort and sacrifice and tons of education. I mean, my master's degree plus tons of other stuff, right?
Right.
So like here, I can offer them tools that they can just sit at the computer for 20 minutes, and then they have an amazing tool that has taken me forever to figure out, right?
Right.
And so like they have a dream outcome that now the perceived likelihood of achievement is a short time, 20 minutes a day. And they don't have any time, they don't have any effort and sacrifice. So wow, what a fantastic value for that parent.
Absolutely.
Right.
Right.
So thank you for talking that through with me so I could like talk about
Right.
it today.
That's great,
Make it
right?
happen.
Does anybody else have any thoughts on this?
So like how would it fit in anybody else's? Like I can see how it fits in mine, but how does it fit in any of your guys' stuff?
I'm super curious to see, like,
Oh, here.
if you're doing real estate, it seems like it's just on the edge of my comprehension here, but it seems like this is really important for real estate. Like, how do you, so you got to help the person, the client, realize or recognize this matches my dream of independence, of being secure, whatever it is. I don't know quite how that works, but, and then can I really do it? The client is saying, can I really do it? You've got to help them. Yeah, thousands of people have bought houses before, and you can do this. We can help you make this happen, and we can have this happen pretty quickly. Like, this
Right.
is not an 8-month process. This is whatever it is, right? And then, and really the effort and sacrifice on your part is not as much as we're going to help you through it. We're going to help you get there. We're going to take all these steps. Otherwise, you have to try to figure out on your own. which would be completely impossible if you've ever been to a mortgage closing, right?
So in some of those, yeah, absolutely, right? So in the effort and sacrifice column, a lot of times, if as an investor of real estate, a lot of times you're taking over a house that somebody maybe has passed away, and now the family all has to do a ton of work to repair the house and get the house ready and get rid of all of the garbage or other things that has been left behind, right? So there could, and it depends on different circumstances. I'm just throwing things out there, but it could be that there's a ton of effort that they have to do already, and that you're taking that off their plate, right? And instead of taking months and months for them to not be at their jobs doing whatever they're doing, now they can just 2 or 3 weeks or whatever it takes to do your closing, they're done, right? And is that more likely, or is, and so anyway, yeah, talking about each of these levers in a real estate type of situation is really important. And then finally, a lot of times people don't even know what all their options are, right?
And that's what I was going to say too with real estate, is I think you're 100% right, especially in like the sales side too, right? Where I think a lot of people attach their future dreams to some idea of some kind of a house. And so by the time they're ready to purchase that house, they're really, a lot of the times they're thinking about their dreams. And then I think one of the biggest things that stops people from buying houses is them not knowing how many options they have to buy houses. And so I like that, where it's also in communicating the likelihood of achievement to them, because just like it says, it's their perception of it.
Right.
And so I've seen or had a lot of sales that don't go through just because, for whatever reason, I wasn't able to communicate what the actual experience would be, and I could tell that they're getting a little bit of a different experience. And so I've actually been right through that as well in buying a house, where you're thinking, okay, how long is it going to take? How much effort's going to go into this? Buying a house is a lot of work, right? Like, depending on how you're doing it. So, yeah, no, that's cool.
That's awesome.
I like that a lot.
Great. All right, so there's one thing about this equation that is actually really cool, right? Because this is a division, right? And because what we have here is we're talking about the value, right? So all of the things that we're doing here, if this dream outcome gets really, really big, then the value is going up higher, right? It's getting bigger and bigger. If the perceived likelihood of achievement is getting bigger, if you did a super job of showing them all of the things and the likelihood that that's going to happen, if you do a super job and this gets bigger, then the value is getting bigger, right? Because they know it's going to happen. And in a lot of ways, that right there is a huge factor, right? And I don't think we realize that a lot of times. Like if you just know the steps, like you know that it's going to happen because you know all the steps, you can move through it so much faster. It's one of those NLP things. If you know, you're going to just be able to make those steps fast, and it's so much more valuable, right? But if we have the opportunity to make these go to zero, because this is math, the smaller this gets, the bigger value you get, right? So if you get this to be like 0.01, or if the time delay, if they get it almost instantly or instantly, then the value is going to be bigger, right? And I know that in real estate that's difficult, right? But if you can get, you can close a house in 10 days or whatever it is, that creates more value. And if you can reduce the amount of effort and sacrifice on their part, then that additionally creates a ton more value. So if we're focusing up here, that's great. That's really important. But it's almost as important, if not more important, to focus on the speed that you can get things done. And I know in my business, this is one of the things that I have been focusing on a lot recently. And I feel woefully inadequate in getting things done fast.
But then also the effort.
Here, let's put in the, yeah.
Because what I've been noticing you do is you have actually been saying, this is a ton of effort, and I gotta find people to help me do all of this effort. So like now what you're doing is both of those are getting smaller because you're multiplying yourself
Right.
and you're multiplying, smallening the time, and so that's what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like what you're saying there. That's something I haven't really considered, but really, so I hopped on a call this morning with William Lamb, John at Madsen, and Nineveh Madsen. And they are probably the three people that I've met in person that I've watched grow the absolute fastest out of anybody I know. And they were talking about, on that call this morning, they were talking a lot about the standard operating procedures and those kinds of things. And just building that one thing out is part of the concept of what they were talking about this morning was that same thing. If you can find a way to just automate, you're gonna, essentially the time delay, at least I found in my business, the time delay right now is me. I am almost entirely the entire time
You
delay.
are the
for everything.
bottleneck.
Everything else that's not delayed has a system and it just unconsciously gets done, right? And so I think that's really interesting that you point that out, because you could be doing one thing, working on SOPs, and most of the time that's just going to reduce the time delay and the effort and sacrifice to produce the same result, which is
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely. Yeah.
So cool.
So one of the things that I've been working on in my life is I feel like that's exactly the same thing is happening for me is I feel like I am the delay for all the things that are happening in my business as well. So one of the pieces that I've been working on is I've committed to myself every single day I'm going to go and be at the gym at 6:00, and I'm going to go swimming, and then I'm going to be ready to work by 7, right? And that's been a little difficult for me. It's kind of crazy because I've historically been kind of a night owl, and I felt like I needed some more time in my life to work on the things. And so this morning, being honest, was really difficult because I stayed up late talking to my wife, and I enjoy just brainstorming with her, and she's great that way. But it was past midnight, and so when my alarm rang at 5:30, I was like, whew, that's hard. And I'm sure there's lots of people out there that are great at doing that, but it's like that automatic thing, right? It's like, no, this is just the way that I personally operate, and that's how I'm creating the growth for me so that my company can grow, right? Because I know every single day I'm going to do this, and if I can do this every single day, then I can follow my own process every single day, right? So.
That is really huge.
Yeah? You want to?
Yeah. I mean, I think that is a foundational piece, because then when you're really actually trusting yourself, and then you're being honored. I love the word self-obedient. I just think that's a great word. And so if you have that just knowledge that you can be self-obedient, then you can start to bring that into your whole, and that's where personal power comes. That's where connection comes. All my pillars all come, in that little spot. So
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, so let's do an activity here for a second. I want you to write down as many different uses of a brick as you possibly can think of, and how many different ways could you use a brick in life to provide value. Okay, so we're going to do 2 minutes. We're going to do 2 minutes, and I want you to write down as many different uses of brick as you possibly can. And while you're doing that, then I'm going to look for my book real quick. 1 second.
All right, go.
Found it. It was in my bag.
Just one brick or bricks in general?
That's a good question.
How do you define it? Did you start a timer? Okay, sweet. Twenty seconds left. Okay, time is up. Let's go around the room. I want to hear some of these.
Smash bugs.
Smash bugs. Okay, great.
Make a blockade, a bench, paint them, grind them up and make dust, import it into cement, kill an animal to eat, make a garden box, make a path.
Okay, I like it.
I liked the dust one. You could grind it up and make it into dust and then probably grow a plant in it.
Okay, cool.
So that one's cool. You can use it as a hammer. You could use a brick for protection,
Yeah,
you know. I've seen people decorate with bricky things.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. Love it.
Make a wall, use it to contain fire in a furnace, use it as a paperweight, use it as a small boat anchor, throw it through a window during a protest, drop it from a high altitude to create a crater, can be used as ballast in a small boat, can be used as decoration with flowers, can be used as a headstone for your favorite goldfish when he expires, or you could be used to put on a favorite quote.
Okay, those are some great ones. Good job.
So I used a lot that he used, but I also used, because in my country we build the houses not from paper or whatever is they're built here, but actually from brick.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of things are built from brick. So
Right.
my buildings are a house, a box, a coffin, a garage. Like, you can build all kinds of things. You can kill somebody with a brick. You can put it on your grave. You can kill yourself by hanging out with a brick. You can work out with a brick. And a lot of the things you mentioned.
Awesome. Okay, cool.
I said you can.
Use it in a gym, yeah.
In a gym, yeah. Okay.
I said make a brick statue, build a wall, fire pit, and a brick oven for pizza.
That's awesome. I love the pizza. Yeah, that's great.
A lot of people said mine. I'm just going to say them again. You could throw it. You can make a house, a path, a tool to kill, a doorstop. You can iron with it maybe, and use a paperweight and a pizza stone.
Awesome.
Yeah, pretty much all of mine were taken, but
We got to the end here.
part
Yeah.
of a wall, doorstop, keystone, paperweight, or a destructive tool.
Okay, cool. So I want to ask you a few more questions, right?
What is usually like when this type of game exercise is done, what is the goal?
What is the goal? To have you think more, right? To kind of to help us be creative about what we can do in our business to help us, because there's so many things that we can solve if we have an open mind, and he calls it a type of thinking. Let's see, where is it?
I mean, while you're looking for it, I mean, just in this exercise, I was thinking, okay, so we, all of us came up with different things. If we're trying to create a unique selling proposition, goldfish headstones is something nobody else is doing right now.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a possibility, right?
Right. So convergent versus divergent thinking, right? So, and one of the things that we run into a lot with, the society we have here is that when we go to school, when you go take tests and such, right? The teacher is expecting one answer. There's one answer for that particular question. But when we get out into real life, that doesn't apply. Yeah.
Sorry, I am sorry I'm interrupting
No worries. No, it's fine. I love
just
the.
thought about it, and I just felt like I wanted to share before I lose it.
Yeah, go for it.
Listening to your great lesson. But I was thinking that all of us came from a predisposition of what we're used to. Look at me, I'm thinking of what a brick is used in my country, and everybody probably came from the same. So I guess the exercise was very good to help us think out of the box.
Yeah.
Maybe some creative ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, if we think about in convergent thinking, there's one right answer. Right? So as we go throughout school and throughout all these different places, the concept is always coming to a specific answer. And so Elon Musk actually did a fantastic interview with the Everyday Astronaut where he said, the biggest problem for all of my engineers, the biggest problem for smart people is optimizing a thing that shouldn't exist in the first place, right? Because he spends so much money on optimizing a whole bunch of things and spending a ton of time. He has a whole story about they had a mat inside of their Teslas that this team said that it was for fire protection, and the fire protection team said that it was for noise reduction, and it was a beast to get glued in correctly. And so Elon's like, well, why is it even here? You know? And eventually they figured out that it just somehow, some intern put it in there, right? And it didn't need to be there, but it was causing so many problems. And so if we have the ability to think outside of the box, if we have the ability to solve some of these problems, then we can use that to create a lot more value. Okay, so question, what is the brick made of?
Ceramic.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it's a metal oxide.
What if you were talking about plastic bricks? What about like Lego bricks?
Yeah, I guess Legos are bricks.
Or what about, what size is it? Is it the size of a tab of gum? Is that the brick shape?
Electronics, there's something called a brick as well.
There's another kind of brick,
So, yeah.
right? What about, what is it made of, right? Is it made out of gold? Gold bricks? So as we go through the process of asking more questions about the problems that we have or about the resources we have, it may help us to get more answers or ask more questions to then be able to use those in new and unique ways. Is it shaped? Does it have holes in it? Is it interlocking, right? Is it made out of foam? Who knows, right? So anyway, those are all fun things. So I just want to read. Let's grab the mic.
I just wanted to. I was so excited to talk. I just talked before the mic gets here. I just wanted to point out that this is such a huge NLP concept that we're talking about too, because I feel like maybe one of the things you're communicating is just how to chunk up with is that Milton or Meta? Milton model?
Yeah, Milton, I think.
Milton model? Because, we're all sitting here thinking like, okay, ceramic brick, right? And the easiest thing to do, which it seems like in most of the examples I've heard of with NLP, it is just as simple as just like chunking up, where you're like, okay, I'm a little bit too like focused or foveal
in the weeds
on this. Yeah. And if I were to just, take one or two steps back, everything's just super clear. And so that's, cool because you can just say, okay, well, instead of like a ceramic brick, we can go to brick of anything. And then at that point, you have almost every solution.
Right. And I think I was a little misleading because I put a ceramic brick that everybody was thinking, right? Like.
Yeah, but and that's also probably the most common type of brick. So it's not,
right.
It's not necessarily like miscommunication. It's
right.
just an assumption that we all took that we didn't clarify, I guess.
Right.
Well, one of the things that excites me about this idea is just, I'm thinking about customers. So the customer has a dream, but maybe the customer doesn't even have a dream yet. But if you ask questions, now the customer can start developing, oh, actually, that's something I would like, and this is something I would like, and getting more clarity from the customer by talking to them. I can see that this is like this almost this identical activity that you sort of need to do with the customer so they can discover what they want, maybe in a house or maybe in a system. Or
Yeah.
Yeah, and not just with customers, but maybe even just your family members would be another option for that thing.
I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to the traditional and say I'm just still finding it very hard to think of a brick beyond something made out of clay. And I would think most people in the world would agree. Like even if something made out of plastic resembles a brick, who would think it's a brick? You can't kill somebody with a plastic brick, but you can kill somebody with a brick. And you can't build a house necessarily. It will melt if it's out of plastic or whatever other material. But maybe it's in the shape of a brick. But
Could be.
maybe shaped like brick, but not a brick. So it's hard for me to think of a brick in any other way than a clay brick.
Yeah. So
So I'm just
it's interesting, right?
trying to think out of the box, even though I think out of the box. Sorry.
Awesome. Okay. Any other comments on this? So let's go through just the ones that Alex put in his book. He said a paperweight, a doorstop, a building thing, a home for a fish in a fishbowl, a plant holder with dirt in the holes as a trophy, like a painted brick, rustic decoration to break a window. There's a lot of violence associated with bricks apparently. Like I never actually expected that. I was like, oh, there's no harm here, but apparently. A weight for resistance training, a wedge under an uneven platform, a pen holder, a children's toy like Lego bricks, a flotation device, a plastic brick, payment for goods, a gold brick, a stabilizer for leaning something against, a retainer of value like a gold brick, a holder for a flagpole, a seat, and it could be like a jumbo brick. So yeah, these are great, right? So why the other piece that we want to go through, and one of the reasons why we did this particular experience is because we yes, we did that. How big is the brick? And let's keep going. There is a sales fulfillment continuum. There are things that are easy to sell, and there are things that are hard to sell. There's things that are hard to fulfill, and things that are easy to fulfill. And as we go through this process, we're going to do the brainstorming to start with, and we want to just put everything on the table, right? And then, because we have so many options, then we have the opportunity to pair off the things that are, I don't want to do these things because those are hard to fulfill and maybe don't have a lot of value, right? These are things that are harder to sell, and maybe I am interested in things that are harder to sell because they're more valuable, or maybe I'm looking for doing, and so these are, there's some important pieces. Okay.
Well, I'm also really interested too.
Sorry.
Because I think both of those also have a sliding scale. Like, I think we have a lot of accountability in the ease of selling and the ease of fulfilling as well, right?
Right.
Like, with bad systems, it's really hard to fulfill on really easy things.
Right.
And with great systems, it's really easy to fulfill on just the most complex things, right?
I agree. Yeah.
And then same with, I guess, the sales. I guess I'd probably say it comes down to a system with sales as well. It's just, is it a system, or are you just trying to just talk? Yeah.
Well, and I can kind of talk to that. Today I was just talking to a marketing team, and they're a very good marketing team. And I had talked to another one last week, and it was so interesting just to see the difference. The one I left feeling very insecure and uncertain of their abilities, and then this one, it was their sales process was so put together, and it was just like a PowerPoint, but it left me feeling so safe and secure, and I was like, yes, we'll do you. You guys are the best. And even my partner was like, yeah, I don't feel the need to continue like looking around. Like I feel like they just like took care of us. And so anyway, it was just interesting. So amen.
Can I ask what some of those differences were? Like, what were some of the biggest differences you noticed in that first call versus the second one, where you're like, I don't need to look around anymore. This one's awesome.
I think it was the market. So the first one was a marketing group for kind of anything and everything, and this one, you could tell they knew their stuff about like heavy industrial marketing, and so basically, like, even though like this, they were saying all, because a bunch of us taken marketing classes, and so they were just going through basic marketing principles, but his ability to convey his understanding and knowledge of just the particular market, and it was very different. And so instead of me being like, I don't know, like, are we gonna find somebody who can really take us from here to there, it was like he was like, yes, I've taken all these companies from here to there, and this is how we reach the heavy industrial people. And so anyway, yes.
Okay, that's awesome.
So, and I think one of the things that he did really well, right? Right here? Did he like max out on the like, hey, you felt like he could do it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so then that creates more value for you.
Definitely. Like 500 times. I'm like, oh yeah, we wouldn't be wasting our time, energy, and money and effort in going with this group, even if they are a little bit more expensive.
Okay, so we talked about being creative about the things that you're doing. This right here allows you to ask even more questions, right? Because we want to get a ton of options for people so that we know how, we can use this previous slide, and I wish my remote would go back. We can use this previous slide to gauge things. This is our filter, and then we can do some more stuff. So is this a one-on-one experience, right? Gavin has a lot of one-on-one pieces in his experience. Do we have small group experience, right? This is a very small group experience. A one-to-many, the live stream could be a one, so what kinds of products and offerings are we doing? Do it yourself, done with you, done for you. So different pieces like that. How is it going to be supported? Are you just, SMS, chat, phone, video calls, all of that? How is this being consumed? Is it video, podcasts? Is it a text format, live? Speed and convenience, like what is the level that we want to allow to have this, right? And so then there's this one other piece, and that is, if I was to make a product that was 10 times as expensive as my current product, what would that look like, right? If I made a product that was 1/10 the cost of my current product, what would that look like, right? And so all of these are things to consider as you're going through and creating your offers. Okay, so we want to identify our dream outcome, and then we want to list some of the problems. We're going to use this creative method, right, to list what are all of the problems that somebody could experience when going through my course, going through going through the selling of a house, all of those different pieces. We want to figure out what are all of the problems that they're having, and then we're going to intuit solutions by just flipping it and saying how to blah, blah, blah. Right? So I'm just going to grab a couple of these from the book.
I'm just curious, so is this like problems that they're having? Oh, sorry.
No worries.
So is this just like all the problems that they're having, or the problems, like, is this all the stuff that you're going to solve for them?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this would be all of the different things you're solving for them, or different ways you can solve them. Because remember, going back to this is creating an offer for, we want to talk to a lot of the different points of what is happening. So, exercising regularly. Exercising regularly is hard, confusing, and I won't like it, and I will suck at it. So if your intuited solution would be an easy to follow exercise system that everyone enjoys, right? So as you create a huge list of all the problems that they may come through with the different pieces, then you can intuit different solutions, and then you can go back through and filter them based on, the solutions that you're willing to sell, right? All right. So is there anywhere that you guys feel like you can use the divergent thinking that we've been talking about to improve the value of your offers? Anybody? Yeah, you got them right there.
So I used to be a steel fabricator, and I do a lot of that metalwork. And so I think what I saw my employer do was he would always sell them what he felt like it was worth or what it cost him to make it. So it felt like he was always losing money. But I really think you could say, like this railing around your deck is going to be great. It's gonna have good coverage so your grandkids, will be safe on your back deck. You won't even have to watch them. The bars are vertical, so they can't climb it. Right. And so then it creates you can then enhance this dream outcome for them and produce more value.
Right.
And even though it's the same thing that you're selling before and after, you can have it have more value because of anything, right?
Absolutely.
And then I like the idea, like if I were going to use it, I could say what's 1/10 my program and sell that, or 1/1000th my program and sell that. That's a difference.
Yeah, or 10 times, right?
Oh, 10 times.
Yeah, so you have 10 times your program or 1/10 your program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a divergent thinking.
Any other ideas? Okay. So my NLP concept for today, and I'll go through it a little quickly, is well-formed outcomes. Okay? So a well-formed outcome is a concept from neurolinguistic programming that's used to help individuals and organizations clearly define their goals or objectives. So this is what's one of the pieces we're working on. It's based on the principle that the more specific and well-defined an outcome is, the more likely it is that you'll be able to achieve it. You're going to grab the mic there?
Is this the same as just visioning? Not
It's
just
very
visioning?
similar to visioning, right?
Okay.
But there's some specific criteria for how it's maybe a little bit slightly different than visioning, right? So because, and last week we talked about modeling, right? And so modeling is taking somebody or some concept that's out there and bringing that into our lives. And so well-formed outcomes could be utilizing modeling to see ourselves in the future doing that particular thing, right? Does that make sense? Okay, so the criteria stated in positive terms. Define what you want to happen, not what you don't want to, or not what you want to avoid. Focus on the desired outcome, not the absence of a problem. So I want you guys to not think of a pink elephant.
Yeah.
Right? So we want to state this in the positive terms. Sensory-based evidence. You should be able to imagine what it would look like, sound, and feel when you achieve your goal. This sensory-based evidence can help you stay motivated and check your progress. So, this is really how do I know that I got there, right? How do I know that I got my goal? And that, again, that goes back to, specific and measurable. But number 3, this is within your control. Ensure the outcome is something that you have influence over. It should depend on changes that you can make and not others' actions. Does anybody want to? Okay, that's good. Okay, ecological. The outcome should be balanced and fit well with other areas of your life or your organization. It should take into consideration the larger system in which it exists, considering its potential effects and trade-offs. So, and this is a great one to talk about binary thinking versus quantum thinking, right? So you have, in binary thinking, that's either I get something or I don't get something, right? So either I got my goal or I didn't get my goal. So, but in quantum thinking, we can say, what will I get when I get my goal? And that's kind of the binary bit, right? But what will I not get if I get my goal? So that could be like, if I get my goal, maybe I don't get to spend as much time with my kids, right? And so then that goes back to, we want to check and see if that fits in our life.
Or like if I lose weight, then I won't get all the ice cream in my
Could be,
life
yeah.
at the moment, right?
Yeah.
My understanding of the difference between binary and quantum is like a scale, right? Where you have like from a certain point to a certain point. So then like you can achieve a portion of your goal and still feel successful about doing that. Whereas if you're having a quantum thinking, if you're having binary thinking, then it's only I did it or I didn't, and there's only failure or success, and not degrees of success.
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
That's another way of thinking about quantum thinking for sure. Yeah. And so in terms of NLP, we talk about kind of these 4 different quadrants that you can go into, and each of them are a scale, right? Because then the other 2 are, what will I get if I don't get my goal? So all of these pieces are, what would you say, ulterior motives, right? These are the ulterior motives for why you don't want to get your goal, right? So maybe people, dote on you more if you are not performing well, right? Or they give you more attention if you're not performing well, right? Those are ulterior motives for why you would do something. And then
Is that in the quadrant of what you don't get when you don't? Or
what do you get when you don't get your goal?
Yeah, when you don't get your goal, then
right? So if you're not performing at a high level, what do you get? Because you're not performing at a high level,
I see.
right? So then the final one is, what do I not get when I don't get my goal, right? So anyway, and so then we want to check in on all of those 4 different pieces and see if that fits into our well-balanced life, right? Okay. Specific and measurable. The outcome should be detailed and quantifiable. Vague or general outcomes are less likely to be achieved because it's not clear exactly what you're working towards. So as we're working with our unconscious mind, if we can be very specific and very clear about what it is that we're trying to accomplish, it's a lot easier for our unconscious mind to actually go and get that done. Okay. Okay, so let's go through real quick. I know we're getting a little close to 7 here, but we want to identify our outcomes. So clearly state what you want to achieve. Remember, this should be specific, positive, specific, and within our control. We're going to imagine the outcome. Visualize your goal in as much detail as possible, what it would look like, sound like, and feel like to achieve the goal. Check on the ecology. Consider the potential effects and trade-offs of your outcome. How will achieving the goal affect other areas of your life or your organization? And then create a step-by-step plan so you can break down your outcome into smaller, manageable steps. This can make it easier to work towards your goal and track your progress. Then number 5 is take action. Start working towards your goal, using your plan as a guide. Keep track of your progress and make adjustments as needed. So, any thoughts on that? Let's go into our Q&A segment. Questions or from topics about today or questions about your business. Let's go into it. Right here.
Okay, just in regards to the NLP principle, can you explain like what are the results of that? And my assumption is just that you get it, but I guess if I really want to be I don't know, like, can you kind of go into that at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of the examples that I have is that I have gone through and created my dream house, right? So in my dream house, I have visualized, and I've actually, I do CAD a little bit, and so I've put together kind of like the layout of my dream house. I've talked to my wife about it. We go to house shows, and we've picked out all of the different things that we want to see happen in that dream home, right? And so then we found a lot that we thought this would fit on really well. And then we went through and so we walk across the lot and we are starting to vision what it would be like. We start to see all of that. So we're getting really clear about what it is that the goal is, right? And the reason why I picked this one is because it goes back to what we're talking about the whole time in what is the perceived outcome, right? Or what is the dream outcome, right? And so then what happens is once you get really clear on what are the pieces that what is that outcome, then you can start to dream about what are the steps it would take to get to that spot, right? And so then if you need more clarity around a particular step, then you go and you vision more clarity around what's happening there, right? And then you continue working your way from the far future where you have the thing, you know why you have the thing, and you understand how what it feels like to get that goal. Then you work backwards towards now, and you figure out what are all those different steps, right? And so then the more clear you can become on the more well-formed the goal can be, then the easier it is that you're going to have that thing, because you're going to have more clarity around it. And one of the things that I think maybe it was a Kirk Duncan event, but basically he talked about it as an amount of light around all of the steps. And a lot of times it's difficult for us to take steps in the dark. And so then by creating all of these well-formed steps and being able to see what are all of those pieces, then it makes it a lot easier for us to say, oh, well, that's not too hard. I can see how to do that piece. And then you do that thing, right? And then you can say, okay, well, what's the next step? And then that's the next step. Right? So does that make sense? Does that help clarify what a well-formed outcome would be? Yes. Okay, perfect. Does anybody have any questions or comments on that?
I have a question. So I like what you're saying, and I believe that it's true and has value. But I guess one of the things that comes up is the fear of, well, what happens if this thing that I've dreamed of and invested in energy, what if it doesn't happen? Like, what if somebody buys my lot, or what if somebody, whatever? So how is there a way to overcome that fear or concern?
Absolutely. So we talked a little bit about it, but what happens if I don't get my goal, right? We talked about it.
It's all or nothing, man.
And so one of the things that's really curious about it is we get to work on anticipating what's going to happen, right? So if we think about it in those four contexts, right? What happens when I get my goal? What happens when I don't get my goal? What doesn't happen when I get my goal, and what doesn't happen when I don't get my goal? If we have fear or anything around any of these pieces, that gives us an opportunity to do a little bit of journaling, a little bit of expansion on that piece, and then we can see, okay, well, I have fear about what happens if I don't get this, right? And so then that's part of that. What do I get if I don't get it? Right? And so then we have the opportunity to create an anticipation around that, which then allows us to have multiple outcomes available. So then we get to say, okay, well, if it happens that I don't get that lot, then I can plan for that, and I can say, okay, well, if that happens, then this is the new plan, right? And so then it kind of takes the emotion out of it, because you have all of the different routes that you could go down as far as you need to be able to see. Does that kind of make sense? Okay, do you have something you want to say?
Oh, basically, I think you just said it. I was anticipating saying something you already just said.
Okay, cool.
And so I guess that was that, if it looks like you're, the lot is sold, then the opportunity to have that quantum thinking, so maybe there's something else that's even better that's going to come in, or,
right.
Or what else is possible. It's just that expanded thinking rather than
right.
I didn't get my goal.
Right.
And now everything's dead.
And then two or 3 weeks ago, we talked about some of the some of these questions, right? And so one of the questions that I love that was brought up in that was, how is this the best thing that's ever happened to me, right? So if you are feeling that way about a particular event, then that's a great question to ask, right? Is how is this the best thing that's ever happened to me? And so then by shifting your frame, and that we were talking about reframing, right? And so by shifting your frame to be that positive side of things, then yeah, absolutely, it helps us to go through and have less emotion about the plan that's about to happen, right? And so then we've been able to anticipate all of these different paths that could happen, and that, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah. Are there any questions from the stream? Okay, sounds great. All right. I do want to hear one thing that you guys got from today. So, team, let's kick it off. Tell me one thing you got from today.
Yeah, so there are more than one way to use a brick.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and I really like the quantum thinking idea. Like to, I'm thinking I'm going to do my program this way, but like now there's,
There's more ways.
Options of lots of different things that are possible.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great.
I mean, I don't want to steal somebody else's thunder. I can go again.
What do you think?
I said I got thinking outside the box. There's lots of values with that instead of being closed-minded.
Yeah.
Being more open and versatile.
Yeah.
I like it.
Cool. That's awesome. Glad to hear it.
Yeah, so there were a lot of things, like the 4 levers. I thought that was super interesting. I think that comes into play a lot. But I also am a big believer in creating and visualizing what you want. But I can see I don't do that because I'm afraid of not getting it. And now I see, okay, if I think about it in those 4 areas, yeah, I think that could work. I think that was a very important piece for me today.
That's awesome. Glad to hear it.
Well, there's also a lot of things, but I really liked your last sentence where you just said, how could this be the best possible thing that could happen to me? And I do feel like there was a time in my life I was better at that, and just like you reminding me of that, I was like, oh, actually that's like super helpful. And I think it does go back to that where it's like, yeah, you have a goal or you have a dream or you have something and it's not working in that moment, and it's like, oh shoot, but a lot of times when you look back on your life and the things that you wanted to work out that didn't work out actually really were like so good for you. And so and like your reframing of being like, okay, like what now? So
Yeah, awesome. All right, Gavin, what did you get from today? What's one thing you got from today?
I think the biggest thing that I got from today is I feel like I've just been getting a prompting this week. I thought I was going to spend all next week up in Montana doing a lot of like accounting and QuickBooks and all the fun stuff. But I'm just getting the feeling that it's like I am just not in front of a starving crowd in a couple of places that I want to be in my business. Mm-hmm. And I think that's like a lot of the feedback that I got from today. So I'm excited to change up my schedule for next week and hit it hard. It'll be really cool.
That's awesome. Glad to hear it. Sure, absolutely. Glad to hear it. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to have one ask, is that one of the things I'm working on right now is just growing my YouTube channel. So all this is streamed to my YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to me and give me a like on that video, and then we can. I will continue to grow that, and we'll keep having these. So, yeah, and we'll I think end it in there in a minute. Actually, let's leave that up for a second. And
What is your Venmo, John?
At John Krasick. So right here, this Kraczek. So Venmo at John Kraczek if you're interested in that.
And
But-
if we wanted to get to this specific one to share with one of my friends,
Mhm.
it's just gonna be the bottom one.
What'll happen is you'll go to my YouTube channel and then click on live. And so there's a couple of tabs across the top. All my videos are on the one side, and then it'll be live, and then this will be the one titled Alex Hermosi.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, excellent. All right. Were there any questions? Probably not, but just want to check. Okay, great. Glad. We will see you again on the next one.
Cool.
Okay.
I'm getting a pretty good notebook here from these.
That's awesome.
meetings.
I'm glad.